Welcome to episode 2 of Becoming Unbroke. I did change my channel name for the few of you that subscribed. I was just wanting to get started and couldn't really come up with a good YouTube channel name at the time, so getting my shit together seemed appropriate, but then I was like, okay, but that could be really anything, and this is really, mainly about money. So I am becoming unbroke because I am negative over $100,000 in brokenness. Just to recap a few things for anyone who might just be stumbling onto the channel. As I mentioned, I'm over $100,000 in debt. I did apply to be on the financial audit with Caleb Hammer, and I was not selected. So I took that as a compliment, and maybe I just didn't have any unhinged enough stories or whatever, or maybe I just didn't convey them very well. Because I feel like there's one thing that eventually, when I get around to it, he would have lost his mind over. So essentially, my financial score is 0. So, and Caleb looks at things like your budget. So the last few months I kept going over budget. I had borrowed from my 401k, all the things, and I don't have a ton in credit cards, but I was putting some on credit card, and I do want to, first of all, keep that at a minimum because I have been able to, by and large, last year pay the balances off in full and not accrue interest. I think only once or twice did I only pay less than the total balance due. My debt score, 0, because I'm pretty sure even though it wasn't coming up on some of my credit reports like the Credit Karma and whatever, I feel like I do possibly have some stuff in collections. Some of it I might have to dispute. I know I still need to run those credit reports. Also, I don't know if I have any IRS debt, but that's for another day. But those are the things that Caleb would say, definitely go to a 0. I really need to sort that out. Real estate, I rent my house. I do not own it. I'm trying to think what else. Retirement, I'm going to give myself a 1 out of 10 because I do have some money in there. It's drastically behind for my age of 44 and my income. I think the last balance I just saw was like 13 or 14,000. So for 44, I don't know where I should be at, to be perfectly honest, but I know that's dramatically behind. And of course, it would be even higher had I not taken out the $2,000 loan. So that's frustrating. I'm frustrating in the sense like I'm frustrated at myself. Let's see, what else does he put in there? Investments, I would say 0 out of 10. And then what I did recently was, I know this is like not the most stable. I don't even know if this is truly an investment. I feel like there's mixed thoughts on it, but I did this month decide to go ahead and put Bitcoin on autopay, $20 a month to $10 every paycheck. So that way I have like a little bit of skin in the game, because even though it is extremely volatile, the history and trend of it is going up. And I felt like $20 a month, if something happens, I wouldn't feel horrible. I did have some Bitcoin previously and had pulled it out because there were all those Ethereum issues, and some of the other coins were kind of, getting shut down, and I was, I just got a little skeeved out. But Bitcoin does seem to be the most reliable out of all the cryptocurrency types of things. And I went, well, it's better to have a little bit of something in the game. Even though I'm late, it's better than nothing. And, I guess over time it should still continue to grow. And also my income is at $65,128 in Ohio. So above the median for most places, or right about the median for most places, and that's kind of why I felt like maybe this could be easily shareable and kind of go along my journey with my fellow financial dunces, or anyone who wants to be entertained by my stupidity. So with that $65,000, I do max out my HSA, my health savings account. And that is largely to cover a medication that is on the pricier side for the year. I'm hoping by, summertime, I can get off of it. That's the goal anyway, or at least get it down to I'm in a maintenance mode where I really won't need to be spending over $400 every month. That will not reflect in when I do my budget. That is separate in my mind. So that brings down, at least the last 6 months or so, my take-home pay was roughly $4,000 a month, give or take a couple bucks here and there. I a little bit under budgeted for the month of January because open enrollment, I feel like my insurance went up a little bit. And also I hadn't fully maxed out my HSA, so I knew I was going to be putting more in my HSA. Then I also put some money into an FSA card that is specifically for dental and vision. My take home was about $4,000. I also had added during open enrollment because I knew I wanted to kind of get more stuff together, and I understand that at 44, while I am not old, I am not exactly a spring chicken anymore. So I added things like the short-term disability, long-term disability. So I did want to be conservative when I created my January budget, and then figured at the end of this month, I could kind of figure out what to expect going forward. But then since my first episode, I did pick up like 14 hours of overtime. Did I have any overtime this past week? It might be a little bit, but not a lot. So that might skew it a little bit. And I believe that will hit on my check for the 31st. So that will be nice to have and certainly help pay down some of this debt and get my first month emergency fund. Those are the short-term goals. So I'll just go over the numbers, and then I have included some past check-ins, and then at the end, I'll wrap everything up, see where everything is landing, if I'm about halfway of where I expected to be, since I do get paid twice a month. And also, if you're not interested in the check-ins and the vloggy style stuff, I will go ahead and include chapters so you can skip around if all you really care about are the numbers and how things are doing. So the first thing on my budget, obviously, is going to be my rent. I know I am phenomenally blessed with my rent for this house. It is $850. Even in Ohio, that is fantastic. I just happened to lock it in with my landlord before housing prices really got up like way high. He also doesn't seem to be the type of person to overcharge or anything like that. He's got a number of rental properties, and that's just how the contract is written. It's not technically rent control, but the contract is as long as I'm here, that's what my rent is. So glad I did that when I did. And then for car and auto, my payment comes out to about $500 a month, split into bi-weekly payments, which sometimes can get a little bit wonky, especially on the longer months. There could be a 3-car payment, so it's $250 every 2 weeks. I did already look ahead and put some reminders in my calendar the month prior to when that's going to happen, so it's in my mind, because that happened last month and I felt like, oh my gosh, a 3-car payment month just felt like a lot. So I did that, and so that's showing the average of the year, and then also including some car washes because I do live in Ohio and we use salt on the roads, and salt is basically car cancer waiting to happen. And I'm spending a lot of money on my car. I would like to keep it nice as much as I can and not have rusting stuff or pay for rusted out catalytic converters or anything like that. So that's where I came up with the number of $575. I'm hoping to put $400 into my emergency fund this month. It's probably going to be more, especially with the overtime. We'll see how that works out. Again, when I was first making this budget at the beginning of January, end of December, I was just trying to be conservative, not quite knowing exactly what my net pay would be with some of those adjustments. Utilities, I estimated $375. That includes my phone, water, electric, gas, trash. Did I say internet? I don't remember. I do have my gas and my electric on budget billing. I did that probably in the last couple of months or so, because I felt like if I'm going to really clamp down on my budget, that's what's going to make it easier for me to budget and not get surprised by a huge air conditioning bill in the summer or a huge natural gas bill in these next couple of months, because that has happened and I'm kind of tired of doing that. I gave myself $300 for groceries. This also includes like TP fund and, probably a little bit of pet food or whatever here and there. If I don't do a Chewy order, I'm trying not to do a Chewy order this month. I did go ahead and skip it. That was on the conservative side. Again, I wanted to bring my grocery spend down as little as possible, only getting like some fresh produce and a couple of things here and there, and to really go through my pantry and my freezer, because I felt like I had full cupboards and freezer and refrigerator, but nothing to eat. And then I went, you know what, I'm just going to have to get real creative. And even if my meals don't make total sense, as long as they're nutritionally reasonable, that's my goal on that. And hopefully I can get through the month without having to go out and buy any meat or anything. I did allow stuff like eggs, produce. I don't remember what else. It was only 2 weeks ago that I sat down and talked about these things, but here we are. Next on the list is going to be the credit cards. So I estimated about $250, I believe, between my Capital One credit card, my Torrid card. Gas for my car, fuel, is $175. I did that intentionally on the high side because we also have a new team member at work, so I knew I was going to be in the office more often. And I thought I might have to go down with her when we do, when she does her training down in Columbus at the Columbus area plant. And so that's where, even though I would get reimbursed for it next month, I still wanted a budget in just in case I went down. It sounds like she's perfectly fine to go on her own, but I'm leaving it just in case anything changes or I do, for some other reason, need to run down to the Columbus plant. Car insurance, I had budgeted $170. I think it was like $166 a month. And then I have education as $140. $30 of it was going to someone who does personal coaching, and she is extremely reasonable. I felt like I've talked to her before and taken a class from her and just wanted a little bit of like focusing and help with my business, trying to stop bouncing all over the place and get an outsider's opinion on what are the best things to focus on. Then there's $109 of that is a monthly payment that goes to a course that I purchased almost this time last year. I put it on a 12-month payment plan. Yes, it was spendy. I do feel like that has actually really helped everything with my business. I have seen some improvement. I actually started, bringing in revenue, so that's helpful. The only thing is I might take it off of here, that 109, just because I currently have that auto paying out of my Dayforce, the one that's like the daily pay credit card or debit card or whatever, that's through my work wallet. And the only reason I wouldn't switch that over is this month and next month are the last two payments. So once that is gone, I'm going to be so happy that I'm not going to have to worry about that anymore. And then I also mentioned I put $100 worth of groceries for my mom. She had a little bit of some health stuff and wasn't feeling great about cooking and all of that sort of thing, and had already used up her food stamps and wanted one specific type of dish pretty much for the last month. So I just went, I know about what it costs me. I'll put that in my budget. My mom has helped me with other stuff and stupid decisions in the past, so $100 is not a big deal. That might carry over. She did mention to me today that she thinks she's fine and she's going to start cooking for herself again. I will probably leave that in for a few more months just in case her medication doesn't fully get her back to normal or whatever. So we'll see. I put about $100 on pets. That includes pet insurance. I did have, I got a bigger bag of cat food near the end of December. That might last me through January, actually. So we'll see where that lands. And then also, because when I'm out grocery shopping, that's when I pick up their treats and stuff. That's going to be kind of hard to figure out how to split that up. And then I think that's still a fair budget because I do sometimes do a Chewy order. I do like to, when I can afford it, which technically I can, looking at my budget, buy them the Hills Science diet food, which is not cheap, but it is good for them. They do actually happen to like it. So there's that. I adjusted it. It was like $40 for shopping, and that was very specifically because I was starting a sweater in knitting, and I recognized that I was going to need more yarn to finish it. And then, I didn't want to not finish it or let it sit for months and months and months. Also, sort of, I wanted it for Valentine's Day because it's pink, and does that really matter? Is it a need? No, but at least I kept myself at that $40 spend. $25 of gifts, and I can't remember if that's one of those line items that's automatically in the DollarWise budgeting app. I think that's a great idea. If it was, maybe I did put it in there. I don't know. My goal is actually to knit and crochet as many gifts as possible this year out of yarn that I already have, not to be cheap, but to be resourceful. And also, I super value my spare time, so that's way more expensive in my mind than going out and buying something. And so, but it was also something where I did almost use it the other day because my cousin, her dog had passed, and I thought about like, maybe I'll send her flowers or grief groceries or something. And then I don't know why I talked myself out of it. I don't know. Well, also because the weather was truly shit and I wasn't going to like send a delivery driver over something that probably truly wasn't necessary. But then also I'm like, okay, but she is the type of person that she would send me a card for stuff like that. And that would probably be about it. If she has sent me flowers in the when I was in the hospital before. And maybe that's why, like, whenever something happens in her life, that's where I'm like, I should get her flowers. I don't know. I just felt like the last few times that I was in a position, I didn't necessarily get something like that. Not that I need to, but I was like, I don't want to make someone else feel uncomfortable by me doing more than what they are comfortable doing for me. Does that make sense? Like that, I know that seems really weird logic, and I know these decisions really are like we make them with our heart, and between just the weather being absolutely and the roads being absolutely atrocious, and then I was just like, I'll send a card. I have sympathy cards laying around. It's fine. And then the Bitcoin auto investing, $20 for the month. Business spend is $20. That's going to be like my Canva subscription, which I actually just canceled because I think I'm going to try to put that on an annual and get the discount for that. And then the rest of it is hosting for my website. I put a separate line item for stamps, and you might be looking at this and going, but Holly, stamps are not $17.60, they're $15.60. And, well, I recognized that if I was going to make a separate trip for stamps, I was probably going to be tempted to, I don't know, stop at McDonald's or something on the way home, which, yes, I do have gift cards for McDonald's and a couple of other places, but I just thought I'll reduce the temptation and pay the $2 of handling for my postal carrier to deliver them into my mailbox. Was that necessary? No, but $2 to avoid being even dumber with money, I felt like was appropriate. And then medical is basically $15 for medication and over-the-counter stuff. So that brought it up to about $3,600 of budget, which means I should in reality have $400 plus my overtime. My best estimate on the take home on the overtime might be like $600, somewhere around there. I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm pretty sure that also gets like the 401k contribution, like that's calculated into it. But if all goes well, there's $1,000 I did not budget. And I know a lot of people will say in a perfect world, you set up your budget ahead of time so that way you don't have to make these decisions. but because it was a huge change, and also I wanted to allow for, what if there is something I completely fucking forgot and then I'm gonna feel bad and miserable about myself. I have in the past done that when I used the Dave Ramsey budgeting app, where I would put a line item of like $50 or $100 or something of like oops or slop or I forgot some shit. So I forget exactly what I called the category. So that is what I'm doing. Currently I'm using the Dollarwise budgeting app and also Rocket Money. I didn't set up a budget on Rocket Money. I'm just seeing which of the two apps seems the most stable. So far, they're both still kind of glitchy, which, I mean, it's January. Everybody's probably downloading these and starting all of these wonderful financial goals and habits. And so could just be a matter of they're just kind of getting their bearings with the influx of new users and support for that. So hopefully they'll get better, because I would really rather not pen and paper it, to be perfectly honest. So that's where everything is landing right now. That's how my $4,000 is going to be estimated to be stretched in Ohio. And so with that, I'm just going to let you go ahead and watch some check-ins. As I'm getting ready to do my first check-in, today is now January 3rd, so a day after I filmed my last video. And as I mentioned, I was already planning on going shopping today. My dad and I do shop together once a month, sometimes on, where I live, the area that I live in, and then sometimes I'll drive to him, and we kind of rotate, and it's different stores and stuff, so that kind of helps a little bit, but also can hurt a lot too, because that's one thing that when I said, hey, let's cut it down to once a month, he was like, oh, it's just because you have like the delivery services or whatever. And I'm like, I mean, partially yes, for like the cold stuff or perishables, but mostly because as we were going around, it's easy to be like, oh, well, they have this now, I didn't see this, or all those little tempting things in Aldi. And then when you shop with someone who is a little bit of an enabler, and I'm just as guilty of enabling other people, or going like, here, like you might not see it again. So today we hit 3 stores. We hit my local Dollar Tree, where I spent $8.39. And just to look through some of the things, I did get 2 things of tissues because it was a pretty decent price for the ones with lotion in them. I got their almond milk. So if you didn't know that, if you look in like their baking aisle, I think it normally is, and go usually down on the bottom shelf, you have to check the dates, because some of the ones in the back will have better dates, or sometimes the ones in the front have the better dates. They even have like regular shelf-stable cow milk. So these, I mean, where else are you going to get, almond milk for $1.25, which I know it's like $2.50 or so. Actually, no, I think they raised it. It's almost $3, or maybe it's over $3 for the refrigerated one at Walmart anyway. I forgot to look at Aldi. But these are shelf stable, so I don't have to worry too much about the date. These have about a year on them. So are there more things in here than if you got the refrigerated kind? Just because it's shelf stable, yes. But then I tend to waste it less, because if I don't use almond milk for a little bit, it's there and it's not just going to go bad. The odd one, which I can't remember if Dollarwise had automatically put it in, or if it was a category when I first downloaded it that I thought would be helpful, is $25 a month for gifts. And that might have been me. I didn't get any gifts, actually. I just got cards. My sister-in-law, her birthday is coming up, and then also my brother's birthday is also in March, and I just happened to find a card that I'm like, oh, these, they'll like these ones. And so those were $1.25 each. They weren't one of the like 2 for $1 or whatever it used to be, or some of the other sections are cheaper. So I didn't split out the transactions. So in my mind, because I came so under budget for today on my groceries, it's fine for it to be the household spend. $8.39, that's not too bad. Then we stopped at Aldi, And I'll call myself out on this one. I had already tried to take some kind of a decongestant because like when I wake up in the morning, a lot of times I'm really stuffy and it just wasn't kicking in and I wanted something. So I did at Aldi. Overall, I spent $34.13. This one was the most obvious. I didn't really need it. You know what? On the shelf it said 79 cents and this is $1.19 and I totally didn't catch that. And that was the only reason why I was like, but it's only 79 cents. And that was the other reason where I was like, well, I was trying not to do caffeine, but it was only 79 cents. So like I thought that's what I was going to spend. It was $1.19 is how it rung up. Everything else I think isn't too terrible. I got some salad mixes and I know I'm never going to go through a whole head of lettuce before it goes bad. So for me, bagged is where it's at. And then I did get 2 things of Greek yogurt. My produce, I got, these were probably a little bit on the unnecessary side, but it wasn't a bad price for them. And I do like having them and the date was good on it. That's the only reason I got 2 of them because I'm like, well, let myself get one of them because it still is in the produce. But when I saw they had like a month on the date, because sometimes it's a really close date on them and I can't get through them. So I did get those. One thing I didn't mention as far as something that would be allowed is whether or not spices were part of that. And I did need turmeric. And I was going to get the Walmart organic and it was like 4 something. And theirs was $1.99. Maybe this rang up lower. So maybe that's a wash with the drink. I don't know. So we can argue whether this is necessary or not, but I did feel like I needed it. Produce, I got mango, blueberries were on sale. Actually, both mango was also on sale. I did get the pasture-raised eggs because it was a better price than Walmart. It was $4 something, $4.39, and I think it was like $6 or $7 at Walmart when I checked ahead of time. These could also arguably be considered a bullshit, unnecessary spend at the grocery store, but I do enjoy them, and I thought, well, just 2 of them. These are like $1.39. So really high, but they are high in protein. And just to kind of mix it up, if, I want these in my lunch instead of yogurt, it'll just be a little bit of a treat since I'm not allowing myself to go out to eat. Because I didn't even allow myself to go out to eat today because that's something that a lot of times we will do when we go grocery shopping is stop at Subway with a coupon on the way home. And, with the coupon, obviously it's like super cheap. You can usually get fed for like $7. And that didn't show up on last month's any of those transactions because after I thought about it, I'm like, oh, I paid cash because I think I have, even now, I have about $15 in cash. So I thought to myself, I'm like, well, I have cash. Does it count? And I'm like, no. And I was like, honestly, I was just at Subway and I'm like, it does smell good. I'm just not in the mood for it. And it wasn't, doing anything for me. So I did do okay on that because I contemplated if I was going to allow myself to do that or not. And then our last stop was, before Subway was Walmart. The worst thing I got there, of course, is down at the bottom of the bag. And I know this is 1,000% unnecessary. I don't drink pop every day. And for some reason, when I saw it at the end of the aisle, for 5 something, I was like, I don't know. I know I'm being super, super strict, but I am also trying not to get to the point where I feel so restricted that I give up and I say, fuck all this and go off the rails and spend whatever I want and get all the nonsense. So truthfully, pop is probably the worst thing overall that I do anymore as far as habits. And even then, it's not every day. So this will be my only pop for the month. And when it's gone, it's gone. Is kind of what I decided. A couple odd things I got. Oh, I did pick up my prescription. So that can go under medical. And then also I was out of Sudafed. So like $14 there. I forgot to add it into today's total. But I'll redo that here in a second. So I've got freezer bags I knew I was going to need. So that's part of like that TP fund. Same for aluminum foil. I went to go rip off a sheet the other day and it was at the end. Cat treats. I'm considering those as, this is why it's kind of hard sometimes because I intermingle my types of spend. I forgot to mention, I will still probably get electrolyte drink mixes because I will not do liquid IVs. Those are way too fucking expensive. It's absolutely ridiculous. Even in this, I think at Walmart, they're like $8 or $9 or maybe even more. And then there's the Alani Nu ones if you wanted the caffeinated ones, which I'm trying to stay away from. And maybe those don't have electrolytes. I don't remember if Alani Nu does or not. So these are like $2-ish. The price on these goes up and down all the time. Why am I not seeing it? I'm going to assume it's this line that I totally don't understand. And it's $1.98. That sounds about right. That's not too, that sounds about in line. They fluctuate from like $1.80 to $2.24, $2.40, somewhere around there in the summertime sometimes. But electrolytes are good. I do like having those with working out and everything. And then this one was, again, we can call this unnecessary, sort of, but also TP fund, but also in the vein of I'm trying to make better choices that are longer term, things that I'm not constantly spending on things. So one thing I do get a lot are like the muffin or cupcake liners. And those are like $1.48 for, I want to say 48 of them. So those last a decent amount of time for me, but it's not unusual for me to go through several packs in a year. So that can add up really quickly. And these were just under $8.96 for the silicone versions that will last years if I take care of them. So that was kind of my justification of I will save more in the long run, especially because this is such an extremely low spend for me. Instead of cheese, I did get cottage cheese to break up the yogurt because sometimes I do get kind of sick of yogurt. So I kind of felt like that was in the same vein as Greek yogurt. I got, okay, this was another completely unnecessary spend, but I was in the store and I was thinking to myself, again, it was in the vein of I need one or two things so that this doesn't feel like I want to give up right away. So I did decide it is okay to get like one candy per shopping trip. So, well, okay, 2 candies per month. So I did get, I know these are so terrible. Maybe this is worse than the pop, honestly, because there's like red 40 in them and stuff. And I am someone who is sensitive to red 40. I'm not allergic to it, but I definitely notice later in the day when I've had it. So, not the best. And again, if I eat that in 2 days, oh well, I'm not getting more candy. All from Walmart, my produce was carrots, which I would have gotten the fresh carrots because it's a better deal, but they looked awful. Like I would not have fed those carrots to a dog or maybe not even a pig, to be perfectly honest. So I was like, I was going to shred my own anyway. So for like stir fries or whatever and soups, for just a little bit more, I'll get the pre-matchstick style of carrots. So not the most awesome. I did go in with the best intentions and I'm like, okay, but then I could go run over to Heinen's and like by the time I spend the gas and like, it just wasn't worth it. I got bananas, and this is a great tip if you're trying to figure out, well, how do I have like good produce that will kind of get in between those 2 weeks, those 2 pay periods or whatever, is so obviously I'm going to want to eat the blueberries first. Those are most likely to go bad first. And then, like I said, there's about a month on these. So as long as they're not opened. So this can be part of it. And then the salads, it is what it is. I got bananas and I got them on the greener side. So that way by the end of, this coming week, maybe into next week, I'll have some bananas and have some fresh fruit that way. The mango, I got it a little on the hard side, so it's not fully ready and ripe to cut into yet. So that's another tip too. Apples are ones also that will kind of go a little bit longer. Like I can usually get about a month out of an apple before I look at it and I go, I might need to toss this. The only reason I didn't get them is because I've noticed this time of year, at least in Ohio, by the time they truck it in from whoever has apples in season, they get kind of mealy. So I was trying to stay a little bit in season or at least some consistency. And then the carrots, those last like 3-4 weeks also. So that's not a big deal. And I don't know if I said I spent $37.43 at Walmart. So that was a total of $79.95 without my medication. So if I make this a separate line item, I can do that. Or if I want to put it as part of my household spend because I'm being a little bit more extreme this month, that brings me up to $94.25. And that's actually really like pretty good. And I know like $80 is still a lot for what feels like not a ton of groceries. Again, there are things I could have gotten rid of. If I'm thinking about what I absolutely could have gotten rid of, I mean, being absolutely, well, okay, I need the medication. So you could even argue that's medical spend. I could, oh, sweet potatoes. I forgot sweet potatoes. Sorry, I just noticed these by my feet. Sweet potatoes are another thing that will last well into a month. So that was my other veggie or starch kind of thing. I do love sweet potatoes. It's my favorite. And yeah, so if I was being extremely ruthless, then what my spend would end up being is, okay, if I cut off everything that feels completely unnecessary, including the birthday cards, I could have gotten down to $49.01. That means I'm not lining my baking sheets with foil. I'm not using freezer bags. I'm putting stuff in glass storage containers and putting it in the freezer, but I just haven't had the best experience with them. That means I'm not getting pop. The puddings weren't totally necessary. Candy, obviously. So yeah, the baking cups, we could argue that's not totally necessary. So I could have gotten this down under under $50. And honestly, I'm not upset that I spent another roughly $30 on some of this other stuff because I was so reasonable about everything else. And because I already had like that $200 in my mind that I could spend today if I absolutely needed to, I came in even with my medication and the Sudafed, like half of that. And that's a massive improvement because I feel like most of the time when I go shopping with my dad, it is so easy for me to blow at least $150 up to $200 and then still feel like this is really all I got. So, yeah, I think this was not a bad shopping. It could have been better. And that's why I'm showing you like my accountability and then some of my logic of like, okay, some of this was not necessary at all. And again, we can argue like TP fund, because like TP fund is like all household stuff. Like these would probably be fine, honestly. So, and even this would totally be fine out of the $100 that I would allot myself for that. I don't know if I'm going to start a spreadsheet or not to get like a better picture of how I do my spend when I do the household. And now that I'm thinking about it, like with the pet stuff, like do I want to put some of my pet spend into my grocery budget? So like when I'm at the store, that's what's in my mind. But it's also not unusual for me just to do a Chewy order or, just order their stuff separate if they run low and I'm like, oh no, I was not paying attention. I did near the end of last month buy a fairly large-ish bag of cat food. I want to say it was like 11 pounds. So hopefully that gets me through January. It may not, or it should come close to it at least. The cat treats are obviously a necessity. That's not even a doubt in my mind. I will get my cat's treats before I, get stuff for myself. If I have to live on hot dogs, I will. So that my cats can have treats. That's just how I am. So anyway, let me know how you think this shopping trip did. I know it wasn't like a huge haul or anything like that. Obviously, this was a really it was supposed to be bare bones and it was slightly above bare bones, but still a massive improvement compared to how I shop in the past. So I guess I'll just keep you updated and posted throughout the month and keep doing these check-ins. I feel like I keep totally fucking up and just doing dumb things. And I know that's one of those things where everyone says when you first start budgeting to expect that you're going to make mistakes, but it's still frustrating in the moment. And this is the type of thing that could easily derail me and have that like all or nothing mentality. So if I feel like I come to you and I kind of, I don't know, I guess confess or at least hold myself accountable to someone that I'm not going to just totally throw in the towel and give up, and also recognize that I still need to do better. So looking back at that grocery haul, I'm still kind of disappointed in myself that I got the Swedish fish and the pop in particular. Those are the two items that, like, okay, it was less than $10 for the both of them. But when I look back on it, I'm like, I'm just disappointed that I felt like not necessarily that I needed those things, but I wanted them enough, and that I couldn't just get through 1 month without some treats because I'm not a dog. I don't need treats. And then Friday, I was extremely, extremely exhausted on the way home. Today is now Monday, and so I'm just kind of replaying in my mind what was kind of going on. And that was, we went through a big thing at work, a huge project. The upshot is that I did put in, I want to say 14 hours of overtime plus 2, so it's going to be a decent amount of overtime. So that won't hit my check here on the 15th coming up, but I believe it hits on the 31st. So I have that going for me. However, I was extremely tired, and when we are extremely tired, we make bad decisions, and we tell ourselves that there are things that we need that we don't necessarily need. So when I got gas, I went inside for 2 reasons. One is, for some reason, my debit card sometimes does not like the at the pump card readers. The second reason, which is more embarrassing because I knew I was going to do this, and I contemplated hiding it from, here. And then I was like, well, then I'm just cheating myself. And if I don't share this, if someone else is going through this same, I don't want to say problem, but flawed logic, that just know you're not alone. And it is okay to recognize this was a bad choice and we can do better. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead, go inside, pay for what I need at the pump. Actually, if you do more than the amount than what you think you actually need, it's not going to charge you, say, like I said, $30 on pump, whatever, 3 or something. I knew it probably wasn't going to be $35. It was like 24. You only get charged the 24. You're not going to just not, it'll adjust at the end is what I'm saying if you do decide to pay inside. But anyway, aside from that, I thought I could just go ahead and sneak one of these bad boys in with my purchases, because I was like, but it was a really long week and I feel like I kind of deserve and need this. And I was so exhausted. I left work an hour early. So yes, I left work an hour early and still had 14 hours of overtime on Friday. And staying awake on the way home was rough. That's just how demanding of a week it was. And that I knew by Friday I could kind of relax a little bit. So I just wanted to share that I'm trying to think about it in the way of I don't necessarily regret them. These are how we learn. But I also don't want this to turn into a slippery slope of just then constantly justifying those things. So that's where that's at. My other huge fuck up this morning was in the Dayforce wallet. That's the thing that's tied to my payroll that you can do the on-demand or, daily pay essentially. I had Friday done the daily pay because it was still such a habit. And part of me was like, okay, I don't have even a 1-month emergency fund. So I'm still going to take it out. So that way, gosh forbid something happens between now and actual payday, I still have at least a little bit more in my accounts to kind of cover something. That was at least my logic. And that has been my logic in the past sometimes. And then I don't use it for those things. But that was my logic this time. And I am sticking to that. So I went to go transfer it into my Capital One checking account. And then I wasn't paying attention. And then it went into the account that I had mentioned was full of fees. I did manage to figure out the login and got that all straightened out this morning after I realized, oh shit, I sent this to the wrong account. I wanted it to go to Capital One, not this other account. So I went in there and got the password reset, everything else. And at least it wasn't as bad as what I was expecting. It is negative 11 and something. So basically negative $12. So not awesome. And so I guess that was kind of like the universe forcing me into that, because I feel like I still would have put that account, or, managing that account off into the future, like next month or March or who knows when. So the fact that I accidentally sent it to the wrong account, not great. But also that means if it does hit tomorrow, I could just call, close it out, and say, hey, send me the funds or transfer it to another account, whatever the case may be. So I just felt really, really stupid in the moment, because I was like, and I even called immediately. I called their customer care and I was like, hey, is there any way I just, initiated the transfer? It hasn't actually done anything yet. And she said, unfortunately, we can't. There's no way we can stop a transaction like that. So I tried. And so I was like, it's not the end of the world, because it's not. I just felt really stupid. So those are my fuck ups. Not even 2 weeks into January. And I still have to remind myself and give myself a little bit of grace, because I know, like, had this been last month or November, I'm like, well, things have gone off the rails and I just might as well do whatever and not even care or try to get back on track. The, all or nothing mentality. Like, if you eat something bad throughout the day while you're on a diet, then the rest of the day you just throw it away. So, so I'm trying to prevent myself from doing that and letting you know what has happened. So I guess while I'm here, we can also talk about some of the meals I've had recently. One was, well, this was a fail. I kind of suspected this was going to be the case, only because I bought like 3 or 4 chuck roasts all at the same time about a year ago. So they were still in the freezer, and 2 of them had come out incredibly tough, even in the crock pot. So, and that was at a time where I'm like, well, this crock pot is relatively new. Maybe it's the crock pot. I used a different crock pot on this 3rd one over the weekend, and it still came out incredibly tough. It just happened to be that particular batch was just, yes, if I was starving and hungry enough, I would have eaten it and managed, and it would have been fine. But the fact is, I do have so much food I could still go through. And in fact, looking at it now, other than, again, some fresh produce, I might be able to get this into February the more I'm looking at stuff. But then I've gotten a little bit more creative on things, or at least opened my eyes to things. So I almost never eat cereal. I'm not going to get into my whole thing on cereal, but I do keep some cereal for power outages and power outages only. And that's just because I'm like, I would rather eat cold cereal than cold something from a can. Makes sense. So I did go through some of that stuff just to at least look at the dates on them. And there were a few that are coming up really quick on expiration. So I did go, okay, not ideal right now, given my current goals of what I want to eat and fitness and everything. But at least it's not going to waste now that I'm seeing, hey, these are about to expire or go stale probably. And then I'm really not going to want to eat them. And then, So I have had some of that. And also I've gotten a little creative with, I had leftover cheddar broccoli soup. I added some chicken to that and then put it in a casserole dish and topped it with Pillsbury, not crescent rolls, the biscuits in the can. And, it's what I had laying around. Also, all the off-brands kind of suck. So I will only buy Pillsbury on the rare occasion that I do get canned crescents or biscuits or anything like that. I think it turned out great. The only thing I would have changed was I might have added like a little bit of flour or cornstarch to thicken it a little bit, or maybe even some rice just to kind of soak up the soupiness a little bit. The biscuits kind of helped, but it was still a little bit runnier than I was anticipating. So it was still delicious though. And so yeah, this has been good to get creative and not just let things sit in my fridge until I'm just throwing it out because it's gone bad and not thought about other ways I could use it. So this last week wasn't a total bust. It wasn't full of a ton of screw ups. It was just a few blips. And I am glad that I have now the focus on paying attention to these things and recognizing these aren't the best choices when I'm in this financial situation. So yeah. Okay, so I know I was feeling pretty disappointed in myself in some of the choices I have made recently, but then I had to sit down and reflect all of the good things that I've done to improve my finances. I did use up the Audible credits and that has been canceled, so that is good. And then I I think I had already canceled the membership for Caleb Hammer, the YouTube channel for financial audit, the behind the scenes. All the different extra shows were really fun to binge. So I suspect in a few months I'll probably do another month and binge watch a bunch of post shows and whatever again too. So that will be fun. Let's see. The other thing I did kind of forget to mention until it came up in my first video was one other spend that I was allowing myself is I know by and large I did not want to buy any yarn possibly at all this year, or at least keep it at a very minimal amount. And I forgot that in my mind, I knew there was a sweater that I was working on and I was going to most likely need more yarn, which I did. So I was allowing myself to order that so that way I didn't have just like a half project sitting around until the end of time, because that's the sort of thing I would do. And also to make sure I get the same dye lot from that particular yarn provider company. Oh my gosh, words are hard today. So other positive things, obviously, I still haven't gone out to eat for the month. I've resisted all the temptation so far. Well, I mean, other than like a company lunch, but it didn't come out of my pocket. So I certainly wasn't going to be like, no, I can't go to Cheesecake Factory when you're paying, because that is allowed. I just didn't want to spend money on going out to eat. Even today, I was stuck at the dealership longer than they were anticipating for a recall, and I was so tempted to DoorDash something. And I was like, you know what? I did go ahead and get like a cracker pack from the vending machine for like $1 or something, and that was fine. It held me over until I could get home. While I was stuck at the dealership, I finally went ahead and did some shopping around for my car insurance, which I knew I was paying kind of a lot. And when I first purchased the vehicle, I don't know why I don't know, I was using a broker, and so you think you're getting the best deals, but not necessarily. And it was just because the same insurance company that does my pet insurance that I have now, thanks to watching the financial audit and understanding, no, this really actually is a useful thing to have and not just, spending money to have claims denied for, I don't know why I just had that in my mind. I'm like, I'm going to spend how much a month? And they're probably just never going to, accept any claims anyway. So I do have pet insurance. And then they were doing an offer, and they had even thrown it out to me last month to add my car insurance. And they projected I would save like $37 a month or something. And so I went ahead and went through it. I could have saved $50 a month if I kept the exact same coverage as what I had with my previous insurance company, except that if I save $40 a month, then it doubled my coverage and also gave me the uninsured motorist coverage. So I thought that was really important and totally worth the extra like 10-ish bucks per month. I'm not even going to complain about that, because my long-term goal on that is to go start paying on the half at every 6 months. So once I do that, it'll end up saving me like $350 per 6 months. So $700 a year, nothing to sneeze at all. It is going to be so, so, so worth it that I finally spent the time to sit down and do that. And then also by doing that and having the bundle, it gave one of my cats, his policy is completely free now because of the bundle discount on top of their better rates for car insurance. So all around, I mean, it was definitely, half hour well spent, maybe a little bit more, because I did have to dig up a little bit of information. So progress. Oh, and also the accidental daily pay, it did go to that checking account. I went ahead and then once it actually went through, I went and basically closed the account, got the cash for it. That was the easiest way instead of waiting for 2 or 3 weeks to get a check in the mail. That just seemed kind of silly. So I did go and I actually did need, TP and a couple other things. got that, and the most like luxury purchase from that quick trip after closing that account was like $1.88 I spent on a pack of American cheese. So, and for anyone that's, not in the US, you probably call it plastic cheese. And I know, like, was it necessary? No. I'm also not like in a super emergency mode. And I know I'm like, but if I'm going to do scrambled eggs and I'm going to want some cheese, or to use up the bread in my freezer, I was not going to have enough cheese to make grilled cheese sandwiches, which of course I buy the cheese, get home, put it away. And I'm like, wait, I could have just made French toast with the bread in my freezer. But like for at least a week, I couldn't think of what else to do with the bread that I had run out of cheese with. So whoops on that one. And it's fine. It's totally fine. And then also, I am kind of glad I did get the cash, because I know cash is harder to track, but I also like having some on me, because at least twice last year, once at a gas station and once at Taco Bell, which we know is not necessary. In both instances, their credit card or debit card readers were down. So it was nice to be able to be like, yeah, no, that's totally fine. And it wasn't a big deal. I feel like that happens at least at gas stations about once a year, that you'll roll up and the card readers are not working and you just go inside and give them cash and it's fine. So I used to actually keep cash in my console, and I might just go ahead and do that now. I think that's why I don't have cash in my console at the moment, because I used to keep like 10 or 20 bucks in there. And I feel like I used that, but didn't replace it. So I have that going for me. And then also I had that dollar bill for the vending machine at the dealership while I was waiting and getting kind of hungry. So there are some positives. I feel like there's some more. Oh, I did put a few things on auto pay already. My phone was already on auto pay, so I went and did. The internet is also now on auto pay. Electric is on auto pay now. Something else I put on auto pay. No, my water was already on auto pay. I tried to do my gas for heating and stuff, and it was really confusing on when it would actually draft and like the different like options you could pick, because it was like 10 to 21 days from your billing date, which wasn't necessarily your due date. So I assume it's the date on the bill, like when they do the reading, but I'm not sure. And honestly, in that moment, I was really not in the mood to call the call center and try to figure it out. So that will get taken care of eventually. It's fine. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Yeah, this feels kind of weird. And I don't know. The other thing I had to like watch with myself today is my direct deposit hit. And then this is where I used to go wrong a lot in the past when I tried to budget, is then I would try to like pay everything all at once, and then I'm like, oh, I have this much left over, and then I would try to get a little bit ahead, but then forget, oh, but I actually needed some of this for like, groceries or whatever other thing, that I was a little bit short-sighted, because I was like, oh, but if I can get ahead. And there's a reason that if you've ever watched Dave Ramsey, that they're like, when we say a $0 budget, we don't mean bring your account down to zero, because I was one of the ones that took that way too literally. I swear I'm not stupid, but I'm an extremely literal person is my problem. So all that to say, that's going well. Yeah, I think this is going better than in the past. I'm hoping by the end of the month, I'll be able to make a decent extra payment back into my 401k loan. And I chose that over my car loan, number one, because snowball effect. My other two small credit cards, those are already like paid just so I don't get interest. That I was already pretty good about doing that, so it didn't make that much sense. The balances weren't that big, so essentially they're already paid off. So then the next is going to be the 401k loan, and that's my 401k is actually getting a lot of interest right now. So it's almost really bugging me. And that's why I had to fight the temptation to just start throwing money at paying that down and potentially cutting myself short on something, because I was like, oh, but it's doing so awesome right now, but it's fine. I did go ahead and up my my contribution because I dropped it down and now I brought it back up to what my employer will match at least. So I have that. And then hopefully start bringing that back up again because I used to actually, this time last year, I was contributing a decent amount. Not, the full max or anything, but it was a lot. And then, I don't know. It's like I start good habits and then can't keep them. But so I'm doing better at least this time. Let me know what you think. If you think there's anything else I could do better, any areas I could improve upon that I am not seeing at the moment, or any sort of feedback, because I think that's going to be helpful. Well, it wasn't a perfect month, but it was dramatically so much better than what it would have been in the past. And especially the last couple of months where I was way overspending and overdoing presents and buying dumb stuff for myself because, it's Christmas and I should treat myself and get myself a birthday present. And just, I needed to get this stuff under control. So it does look like, looking at everything, that the budgeted amount or the amount left is, because I've spent 1827.58. Of course, not everything has hit and not everything has updated in the app. 1827.58 spent. That's still under basically $2,000 between paychecks, and everything looks pretty much like everything's going as expected. Some transactions have not fully updated. They haven't necessarily posted. They might still be sitting as pending in my checking account. Like, I just got a car wash, so that will come out of the car and auto emergency fund, my direct deposit into savings. Also, that was another massive improvement these last 2 weeks, is that I did not touch my savings at all. I don't remember the last time that I did not move money from my savings into my checking account to get by. It's probably been at least a year and maybe even longer. So that was really, really nice to see that the next hit of savings hit the account and see that start building. So I'm going to keep going. Why am I crossing my fingers like I need luck? It's not luck. It's me needing discipline. So that's where I'm at. Groceries are a little over halfway. That might be fine. Again, a lot of that was TP fund kind of stuff. So that might be appropriate. And credit cards, I did pay those. One of them, when I paid my Capital One, for some reason, when I try to put that transaction and link it to this tag or the description of my budget line, for some reason, it's not showing that I paid the $188 and some change on that, but that has been paid. And then I already set up my Toward card, should be drafting it any day now. So those will be paid shortly. Gas, I'm under. As I mentioned, I wasn't sure if I was going to go down to Columbus. I'm still going to keep that as, available because that is a roughly 3-hour drive for me. So not inexpensive. And I would need that money now, even though I would get reimbursed for it later. So I wanted that in there. Oh, insurance. That's actually car insurance. I can go ahead and edit that since I went ahead and made those awesome savings. So yay for that. So pets, the insurances did hit, and then it looks like it might be reflecting the discount for bundling my car insurance with them. I am about halfway on my mom's groceries, and so I'm still going to leave that there. I actually have like a little separate like mock cart ready to go that I believe comes about 48 and some change. So that's going to be real close on that. And again, she's doing better and might not need it, but I'd rather have it in my budget than not. So nothing on gifts, because the cards, I'm like, it's cards. To me, that could be household in my opinion. Greeting cards are, if you shop appropriately for greeting cards, they're so cheap. It's not, I don't consider that a gift in my mind. Business, I did cancel my Canva with the intent to go on to annual. I also am toying around with the idea of what if I don't use Canva Pro for the rest of the month and see how that goes and make that a February goal to put that on to annual. Part of the reason I also did that too is for some reason it was on my iPad, my Apple account, and that just made it harder to track and remember when that was coming due. So I also wanted to switch it over to, something that I use all the time. I did see my hosting draft, but maybe it's still sitting as pending, but it hasn't synced up with the app yet. My $10 of Bitcoin from this past paycheck, $14.30 on my medications over the counters. Rent was paid I think I paid it the first or second of the month. I just Venmo'd it. I'm so glad that they're willing to do that now, because the previous secretary was not willing to learn any of that stuff. And so I don't have to worry about if the mail has come or not, because sometimes when you live in a rural area, it's not always the best. And there have been days where I've been home the entire day and the mail never came, and it was definitely a mail day, or should have been a mail day. It wasn't like a holiday or anything. The yarn came in to finish my sweater. That's $39.39, so I just dropped it. It was about I had estimated a $40 spend. It's $39.39, so basically the same. And then also I did go ahead and order the stamps. So $17.93.41 is my income. That does not include the $114 that I accidentally daily paid to the other account. And then again, I went ahead and took that in cash just so if I ever need cash on me. And then I got a couple of things that day too. The other thing is, I guess I should admit this now, sooner rather than later. Last night I did go ahead and order White Claws from Walmart on my Walmart Plus. Again, I didn't need to do that. I don't know if it's like a Friday thing in my head that like something breaks on Friday and I'm like, but that's my treat for the week. I don't know. And maybe the fact that I've spent, 30-ish, maybe $40 by the time I did tip and whatever. Well, between the gas station last week and then yesterday, like we'll say $40 on alcohol probably isn't the worst spend. And certainly I've spent more in previous months on alcohol than that. So I don't know. The transaction hasn't shown up yet. And again, I could be like, oh, but it's part of my groceries or something else and bury it in there. And maybe next month I do bump up my groceries, or whenever I'm done trying to go through my pantry and a freezer effort, maybe I can go ahead and give myself that wiggle room on groceries, that if I do want to spend a little bit on it, I could. I might run some numbers and see. I don't know. This is the part I'm not good at, is seeing how much quicker I'd be able to pay down debt and if that's worth it to me to be like, okay, but what are some White Claws here and there at the end of the day? But overall, so much better than December and November for sure. Both of those months I was turning into a train wreck, and I needed to do this and get myself back into check and really pay attention, because last year when I had first purchased my vehicle in December of 2024, those first few months I was actually really, really good with my money, because I was like, I've never had a car payment before. It was a 1-year-old vehicle, so I had that going for me. I didn't pay full sticker price. It was basically half price at that point, and like stupidly low miles. So I had never had a car payment, and I felt like, I don't know why, like I was just so terrified with myself that I was going to screw stuff up. And then I got really complacent by the end of the year, and now we're bringing it back in, and not just for the purpose of my everyday stuff. I really do actually want to tackle some of my other stuff. You might also notice that my student loans were not in that budget because I haven't paid in a while, so I need to log into my account and figure out like what makes sense for my minimum monthly payment, which also, I guess, if there's roughly $1,000 unbudgeted for the month of January, maybe that's part of that. I'll see. I don't know. That's just one of those things. I also, in my first episode, had mentioned I need to start going through my stacks and wads of papers to try to track down some financial documents. I've barely made a dent in it, so maybe I need another snowstorm so that way it forces me to do stuff like that. Anyway, I hope this was helpful to you. If you live in Ohio, the Midwest, or really anywhere else that is similar in cost of living, or maybe you're just interested and entertained in what other people spend and what they have for income, that's also completely fine. So I welcome any comments and questions down in the comments. Just be nice to each other. You can be a little rude to me. I can take it. Honestly, I am admitting I did some really dumb shit with money and we're working on fixing it. And if you think anything I did these past 2 weeks with my check-ins was really fucking dumb, you can tell me that. I know that. I'm probably beating myself up more than anything you could say in the comments, if I'm being totally honest. So I suppose that's where we're going to leave off for today. I'll do this sort of similar style probably going forward, unless you have other suggestions on how to structure these. So in about 2 weeks or so, you can expect another video of the next 2-week check-ins and how I actually did for the month, and we can start looking ahead at February. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch me go over my finances with real numbers, real everything, and I really look forward to becoming unbroke.